Hello everyone and welcome to the studio. It is February. That means it's time for another month of pastel and painting fun, inspiration, education, camaraderie, and all of that great stuff that comes with being part of this wonderful Patreon community. So first of all, if you're new to the channel or group, welcome. I'm glad you're here. Glad all of us can be here together to paint and learn and have fun together. I am excited about this month's program. Last month, if you were with us, we focused on starting a painting. How to have a successful start. And what ends up happening is if we start successfully, right, have a strong start, have a value thumbnail, to go through our planning stages, pick our palette out in advance, and all the things that we talked about last month, then that's half the battle. Finishing is the next hurdle, right? That's the thing where we often get tripped up. So this month, we're going to spend time working on effective ways to finish successfully. So have a successful start for a fantastic finish. That's going to be our focus for the month. Now what I'm going to do in today's video is give you an overview of what you can expect for the rest of the month, talk to you a little bit more about finishing a painting, and then I'm going to do a quick demonstration on how I finish a painting, and that'll just, just to kick off the month on a positive note. So what I want to do first of all, though, before I even get into any of that, is just give you a heads up. If all goes as planned, we are currently on a cruise ship making our way to Antarctica. And I talked about this last month, and you may be seeing these posts at the end of every post this month where I go through my frequently asked questions. And that is because while I'm on the ship, I'm not sure how effective the internet will be. And so I like to answer everyone's questions and comments as quickly as I can. And I might not be able to do it as quickly as I'd like to. So if you have questions, check at the bottom of every post. I have some frequently asked questions, those answers, and resources where you can find answers to your questions while you wait for me to respond to you. So some of these things you can find out on your own. Some of them you might want to wait, but I don't want you to think I'm leaving you hanging. I have prepared all of the posts, so you would not, hopefully, if it goes well, you won't even know that I'm away, right? It's just going to seem like I'm still there. The only difference is I might not be able to get back in touch with you as quickly as I like to, or as I usually do. So just wanted you to keep that in mind. If you want to know more about this whole Antarctica cruise, back in January, the end of January, I did a post talking about our itinerary. Basically, it's a side gig I have where I get a chance to go on board cruise ships as art instructor for enrichment programs. So that's really how we get to do these things. All right, now back to our topic for this month. Finishing a painting. I want to start us off with a quote. A painting is always finished before the artist thinks it is. And that's from Harley Brown. And I have found this to be pretty much true, right? What happens is we get to a point in our painting where we're not quite sure what else we need to do to finish it. So we just keep painting. And we don't really think about it, and we paint and we paint, and we don't stop frequently enough. And before you know it, we have finished the painting, or we have overworked the painting, or finished it off, as a friend of mine likes to say. And that's what we want to avoid, because if we stop in enough time, we might notice that the painting actually looks more finished than we give it credit for it, right? We don't need to overwork it if we stop in time and think about it more. And I want to get into this idea of slowing down and thinking about it, and I'll do that as soon as I start the demo. I do want to share with you what else you can expect this month, giving you a little bit of a rundown. So we're going to work on the finish. As far as materials, I personally will be using, I'm going to go back to basics. I'm going to be using unsanded paper, so mostly Canson unsanded paper. I'm going to be using Rembrandt pastels and some Sennelier pastels. I have 3 basic sets of half sticks. They're 120 in each set. I went over, I used last month the Unison 120 set, And this month I'm going to be using, in conjunction, the Rembrandt 120 set half sticks and the Sennelier Paris collection half sticks. I've reviewed all of these sets in previous years, but there's only a limited number of pastels we can buy, and I highly recommend these 3 sets, especially if you're just getting started. And even though I have thousands of pastels, I still rely on these workhorse pastels. So I want to show you how I put those products to use through my paintings and demos this month. Subject matter, I think you're going to enjoy this. There's been a lot of requests for interiors, so we're going to focus on an interior scene for our paint along. Florals, like flowers in a vase. We have not done that very much, and so, you know, a lot of us are in winter and we're stuck inside, so it's a good time to get some fresh flowers and paint. And so we'll be doing that, as well as a lot of other subjects I'm going to throw in there. We're going to do our regular silver paint along series every Wednesday, our Monday demos, and they're going to be mostly videos. We are going to do the Friday challenges, the end of the month feedback video, and lessons for silver members. So we have beginner, advanced, next level lessons that are for silver members, as well as other lessons and miscellaneous content that I sprinkle in to give us a really nice full program of fun. All right, so I do want to talk a little bit more about finishing and what I use. I have 3 tools that I use to finish a painting. Oops, I just dropped. That's fine. Let me just hold them up here. 3 things. I have my painting punch list. I have my checklist, which is a dry erase board, and I have my magic mat. These are the 3 tools that I use to help me finish a painting. Now let me just tell you a quick story about finishing. I am a very quick painter. Like I pride myself on being able to paint quickly, and that was my thing. I like the fast and furious, and I never wanted to slow down at any point in time in a painting. And a few years into my painting, I had instructors tell me, you need to slow down at the end. You need to take your time and make those finishing marks and be more thoughtful. And I didn't want to listen to that because I just wanted to move on to the next painting. So I never really took my time to slow down. I did have an instructor, and her mentor was Dwayne Wakeham, who we had discussed last month. And Dwayne told her, you need to sit on the stool more than you are up at the easel painting. And I thought, oh, that's never going to be me. I can't sit and stare at my painting. I just want to paint. So I didn't really take that advice. That was great advice, actually, because when it finally clicked and I finally said, hey, let me give that a try. Let me sit on my stool for a little bit longer. Let me analyze my painting and see what it really needs and not just, rush through it, right? Once I started doing that, and I found these tools, to help me make those finishing decisions, everything changed. And my paintings went from, oh, that's pretty good, to, wow, that painting got in an exhibition, or someone wanted to buy that painting. It really did make a difference to slow down at the end of a painting. And what do I mean by the end? How do you know when to slow down? When you want to slow down is when, this is my judge, if I've put pastel over the entire painting and I have started to clarify areas, meaning I've started to add detail in places, once I get to that point, that's when I need to slow down a little bit, right? When I get to the point where I'm making marks and I'm not thinking about it, and I've got pastel over the entire painting and I've started to clarify, add details, you need to slow down. That's when I slow down. That's when I step back. You've heard how important it is to step away from your painting. It's critical at this stage. You take a break, step away, come back with fresh eyes. And that's where this tools come into play. Magic mat. This is just an old mat or frame that I have laying around the studio. I keep them in the sizes of the standard sizes that I paint. I put them on my paintings when they get to this stage. And that isolates them and allows me to see them and really focus on the painting and not be distracted by what's around it. And oftentimes I call it magic matte. I put this on and the painting often, as Harley Brown says, looks more finished than I thought it really was. But then I can really evaluate it, and that's where the punch list comes into play. Now, you may have come across checklists of how to evaluate a painting, like when you're finished. And I found, you can Google it, there's lots of lists of things, a checklist of what you need to look for to finish a painting. I found those overwhelming. It was almost too much information, and I didn't want to, that was one of the things, I didn't want to slow down and go through 25 questions. So I've simplified them into just about 4 questions, 4 main ideas. I've gone over these many times in our paint-alongs, and we'll slow down and go through them again this month. So if they're not familiar to you, these are the things that I find that if I can get a grip on them and get these things working, then a lot of the other things take care of themselves. This gives me kind of a structure, and these are the things that will help me make those final decisions. The next thing I do is I take out my dry erase board, my checklist. I look at my painting and I write down everything that I feel I need to address in order to finish the painting, based upon going through that punch list I talk about. Now, you may or may not want to write them down. You can use a piece of paper. I like the dry erase board just because it's a fun tool, and it's just something I take out. It's just part of my process. I find that even if I were to have a good memory, I get bogged down if I don't write it down, and I get distracted by other areas that may not need any attention, and that's when I overwork things. By writing them down and going through the list one by one, I'm able to slowly go through the list and then slowly analyze the painting and make those changes. And when I'm making those changes, I am constantly stepping back, right? This is the slow down, kind of sit on your stool part of the painting. Right? Make a few marks, step back and analyze it. Did that work? Is it too much? Is it not enough? Right? And then go back and make a few more marks. If you do it in this way, then chances are you're not going to overwork the painting. You remain in control of that finish. We will go into this in much more detail throughout the month, of course, but I just wanted to give you a kind of quick lesson overview of what I do to finish a painting. So what I want to do now is I have some flowers, paintings that are in various stages of finish. So, some are almost finished, and there's some that are, need a few more layers. So what I want to do is invite you closer, and we'll work on those finishing marks and show you how I take a painting from almost finished to finished. All right, so I pulled these out of my I don't call it a discard pile, my unfinished object pile. These are paintings that I didn't finish for one reason or another. This actually started out as a demo where I was showing how to take a thumbnail to a finish, and I only finished one. The other 2 on the outer edges are in a block-in stage, basically, so they still need to be finished. This one I thought was finished, but I wasn't quite sure, so it's one of those things, set them aside and give it some time and come back to it with fresh eyes. So what I want to do is go through the stages of finishing that I just talked about, and we'll do it in real time here. And while it may seem like it's finished, I think there are a few things that I can address to hopefully elevate it a little bit more. So the first thing that we're going to do is put on the magic matte, and it's actually a little bit smaller, but it still gives me an idea. Actually, what it's doing is, grab me another piece of tape so I can tape this down. Actually, what it's doing is it's showing me that I kind of like it cropped a little bit more. We can talk about that. The next thing that I do is I go through that painting punch list. Now tomorrow, if you've not seen the painting punch list, I'll put one here, but I'm going to give you a link to one that you can download in tomorrow's post. But the painting punch list basically covers 3 main things. And these are the 3 things that I look for in every painting. Is there a visual journey for the viewer? Meaning, is there a way that the eye moves throughout the painting? Is there a believable feeling of depth in a painting? And a lot of times this is more important for a landscape, but even within a still life situation, you can still have a feeling of depth. Is there an earth-sky connection? So in a landscape, that means, is there a connection between what's happening in the sky and what's happening on the ground? In a still life or figurative painting, you would change the wording and say background versus subject. You want there to be some sort of visual connection. And then I look for unintended pathways, you know, things that are pulling the viewer's eye out of the painting. Worms, which happen more often in a landscape, which are just hard-edged, long, narrow marks that create barriers. Frowning mountains, which we don't have here, but that's something I talk about a lot when we are painting mountains and hills. Tangents, or anything else that is distracting or takes the viewer's eye out of the painting. That's my main goal. How do I pull the viewer into the painting, keep their attention for as long as possible, and show them around the entire painting, and trying not to have them leave too quickly. So those are the things that I'm looking for. Then I take out my checklist, or my dry erase board in this case, and I look at the painting and I ask myself, what do I need to do to make sure that I am creating that visual journey and depth and earth or background subject connection? So I'm looking at the painting, and first I ask myself, well, okay, well, where does my eye go? And I think for me, and it may be different for everyone, but for me, my eye is going to this spot here because it's the hardest edge, brightest spot of color against a dull, dark color. And so there's contrast there, and it's really pulling my eye. There's another one here that's doing a similar thing, but I think this one is stronger. So I have to ask myself, well, okay, that works, but is that where I want my eye to go? Which flower is more important? You know, I can't have this type of petal everywhere, right? Or else then the viewer will not know where to look. You kind of want to pull the viewer around the entire bouquet of flowers. So I have to think about that. This leaf here I like that because it's kind of a dark shape against the light. There's contrast, so the eye definitely goes here, and it pulls the eye up here into the painting. But then once you get up here, it's kind of ambiguous. Look at how fuzzy everything is right in that area. Do I want to have perhaps another flower there that's kind of in the distance? That would help create a little more depth in that bouquet. So I'm going to write that down. I'm going to write, oh, my little marker is not working very well. Middle flower for depth. And you just write your own notes, right? Something that makes sense to you. Okay, so I definitely want to pull the eye here, kind of maybe have a middle flower, maybe more sky hole, more background holes, not sky. And I think I want to make this flower the star, because if I make this guy the star, look at, he's all the way up at the top of the painting, and it kind of like takes you out, right? So I'm going to leave that petal like that, but I really want to pump up this flower here. So I'm going to just say star flower, so I know that I need to work on that. Get that one to come alive a little bit. If I get this one to come alive a little bit more, then maybe these guys can just stay kind of soft and out of focus. I think that'll work really well. I think I can add a little bit more warmer light on that leaf and see if that can't help create the entryway into the painting. I have some, let's talk about the background connection to the subject. The same colors are used, only different values. So I have like the same peaches and yellows, but they're lighter values here, a little bit darker on the shadowed side. This is obviously the light side. I think I can enhance the light on the vase. I'm writing these things down. All right, this takes time, right? This is the sitting on your stool and evaluating your painting. And if you're in the camp that doesn't do this often enough, I encourage you, at least this month, try it, right? And you don't even have to do it for every painting, but pick a painting that you're going to really slow down and go through this process. I like the linear marks that I put in the background. I think that helps draw the viewer in to the painting. I'm going to take this mat away and see, let's just pick this off because we have a lot more. It really cut off the vase. So this is kind of, I'm trying to decide about this. It's kind of touching the bottom of the paper, and I think that it would actually go this far. So I think that's enough. You don't want it to, you wouldn't want this to be the very bottom of the vase because that would be too close to the edge. But if it goes off and there's some room, you know, there's part of it that is off the page, that works. Like here, these petals, they go beyond. I actually even have a mark that went beyond. That's fine. But you wouldn't want it to be cut off. Like this guy here, that needs to move out a little bit more. So it's not feeling like someone came with clippers and cut the petals off. I like the purple in the vase, so I might want to enhance the purple. I'm going to just put down purple. My dry erase marker is dry. I know, I'll take a picture of it. So these are the things that I'm going to address, all right? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over this list one by one. I'll type off the list so that we can see a little bit better. I'm going to move it to the side. For finishing a painting, I'm going to use a combination, let's have a look, of the Sennelier Half Stick Paris collection and some random hard pastels so I can get some finer linear mark making. Okay, so number one, middle flower for depth. So there's a mess going on in here, so we need to somehow create the illusion that there's another flower hidden in the depth. So in order to do that, we need to use it's a yellow flower, but we need to use a duller yellow, not something that's not as bright. So I'm going to start with a dull green. And it's really I have to keep in mind that it's really not about detail on this guy because he's hidden. We need a little bit of dark. Let's go with a darker, cooler blue. I'm not putting detail in this flower, but I need to enhance that background. Let's see if I have the right color here. So I'm going to add some background color. Kind of like sky holes, the same idea, but we're not putting in sky, we're just putting in background. And I want to break up this area right in here, right? It's just a little bit too dense. Put some background to show through the flower shapes. Maybe one right in here. And when I put those marks in, I'm softening them with my finger tip so that I can what I just did here is I just kind of added a petal kind of shape, and that does kind of help pull the eye down back into the center. I'll just darken that center just a little bit. Alright, now number 2 or 3. Pay attention to your star flower. So your star flower here, and what I'm going to do is I want to enhance it. So the first thing I'm going to do is going to really punch up the dark center. And I pulled out my black because that's what I happen to have. And I'm only going to put it in this guy. So that this is much darker than anything else. I want this flower to stand out. Then next I'm going to enhance the petal shapes. Oops, don't pay any attention, that's not for us. We don't have to worry about that alarm. So I'm taking this warmer, more intense yellow, and I'm just adding some of it. I'm having to press pretty hard because this painting, this is on unsanded paper, this is on Canson, and so it's already got quite a few layers. So I'm really having to push hard to get the color to show up. That's a little bit of a warm yellow. Now let's take a cooler yellow. And I find with yellow, if I can mix warm and cool when I'm doing petals, then I have more success with getting the yellows to really pop. That yellow went on easier than the warmer yellow. Also, different pastels, depending on their pigment, have different consistencies. You'll find that. Alright, so next thing I'm going to do is get a little bit more definition in some of the petals. So I'm taking my bamboo skewer and I'm drawing some linear marks just to kind of give the ridges to some of those petals. This area here, look at how that didn't even stick. Maybe he didn't really want to be there. I'm not going to fight it. That could be a message. But I do need to add, just connect those guys a little bit. Alright, so now that stands out a little bit more, but we need to pump up that interior. I used the dark, the black, but I'm going to put a little bit of blue in there so that really makes it stand out. And I did like the little dots that were in there. I just covered up, so I'm going to put them back in there just to show the little bit of texture that's within the interior of the petal. Alright, so we're going to leave this guy alone. This was our star. So this guy's going to have the most detail, the most clarity. I'm going to add just a little bit more on some of the other flowers. But I don't want to go crazy. Now I said this guy needed to come off the page a little bit. So I'm going to do that. What else did I say? See, this is where I run into trouble. So what I'm going to do is check my list. Warm light on the leaf. Okay, great. See, if I didn't write it down, I don't know about you, but if I didn't write it down, I don't know that I would have remembered exactly. Eventually I would have, right? But in the right amount of time. Or I would start working on another area that really didn't need it. So let's go down to this leaf. Warm light on the leaf. So let's see. We've got a really nice, rich, dark leaf. So let's add a little bit of a lighter, bit of a warmer touch. Just to pull the eye back up into, let's add a little bit of it in here as well. And we can take it a step further and add a little bit even. It's kind of a coolish green, but that's a little bit warmer. I'm going to take it a step further and really add some warmer yellow green to it. But what you want to do when you're doing stuff like this is add it incrementally, right? Just a little bit at a time, and then that way you don't get too carried away. Now I'm going to leave this one kind of fuzzy, right? This has the hardest edges and the thickest marks of pastel. I want to pull the eye back up into here, so I'm going to add a little bit up there as well. Alright, next, enhance the light on our vase. So there's a couple ways we can enhance the light on the vase, or vase, however you want to say it. I can go a little bit lighter. So if it was a white vase, it had a nice kind of glow, so I'll just put that in with a almost white. I said I like that purple effect. I might not have the right, that's more of a blue violet, but that's nice. Over on the shadowed side. And whatever that other pinky color, I don't really have that, so I'm going to just leave that alone because I think it's working the way it is. Let me just add a little bit more vase marks up into the flowers, and by using this blue violet, and I put that kind of really nice blue, almost purple up there, that kind of has a little bit more of a visual connection, so that works. And let's see, the other thing that I wanted to do was figure out what I wanted for this background. I like the linear marks. I want to soften the edge where the tabletop meets the that background color, and so I'm soften the edges by scribbling over it basically with a greenish, a pale green. And I'm introducing this so that I can just enhance that visual connection between the background and the subject just a little bit more, because we have some green, you know, in our makeup here, so adding a little touch of the green I think is good. And then I want to darken this side a little bit more just to really push the feeling of light. So this is the same color, it looks like. Very close anyways. And I'm just going to add some more of those linear marks. Now I'm getting to the point where I'm straying from what I said, you know, what was on my checklist. So when you get to that point, right, when you've covered all of your items on your checklist, what should you do?
Step back.
Yeah, you need to stop. And you certainly need to step back. I haven't been stepping back. But when you're at this stage, you should be making 3 or 4, maybe the most 5 marks and stepping back. The last thing I'm going to do is, I like that I put some of these little pieces of petal, like, you know, that they had fallen down. I'm going to just put a bigger one down here and then cover the edge of that vase so it just looks like a little bit more natural. Those petals should be a little bit bigger. And then I'm going to stop. And so I didn't do that many things to change the painting, but I added a few more thought out finishing marks. And I think what I could possibly do is, I really wanted to get more of this warmer yellow. I just have to press a little bit harder. Let's connect them a little bit. But again, step back before you make a mark and work slowly, incrementally, do your checklist, and I think you're going to find it's a lot easier to finish a painting that way. You're in much more control, let's put it that way. The question remains, how do I know what to do? I can look at the punch list and look at my painting and still not know what I need to do to fix it or to address the problem areas. And that comes with experience, really. There's no shortcut. There's no book there that's going to say, okay, if you have this problem, do X, Y, and Z. It's not that easy. And so with time, with practice, with studying paintings and looking at your own paintings, you will get to that point where you're able to look and see. And still, you know, even the most experienced artist might miss a thing or two here and there. So don't be so hard on yourself. Enjoy, above all, the painting process, and let's paint.